Hello, Americans. I'm Paul Harvey. You know what the news is. In a minute, you're going to hear the rest of the story. Now, the idea of spending an afternoon painting your house is not exactly a thrilling prospect. But you know, it's all a matter of mental attitude. Maybe you can enjoy it. Stop by True Value for a gallon of Easy Care interior paint. And it might not be nearly so painful nor time-consuming as you have imagined. Easy Care goes on as easily as the name suggests, so the job is done in no time with one coat. And since True Value paint is guaranteed for 20 years and priced at under $20, you realize it'll cost you less than $1 a year. And it'll be a long, long time before you have to spend another afternoon with paintbrush in hand. Stop by True Value for Easy Care interior paint. True Value. Help is just around the corner. Now, the rest of the story. Sam, the movie producer, had disliked George Oppenheimer from the start. Something about him, who could tell what it was, but Sam had needed a story editor, and George had come highly recommended, so the former, just at once, had put his instincts aside and hired the fellow. Of course, ever since, Sam had been paying for his lapse in judgment. First, there was that ridiculous story that Oppenheimer had convinced him to buy called The Wedding Night. Practically nobody saw the movie it became, and those who did regretted it. One of my worst failures, Sam would call it, knowing all the while that the real failure was George's. And now, what is this? Some book that had caught Oppenheimer's eye. He had found it in a bookstore on Hollywood Boulevard where any story editor in town might have encountered it. And he counted himself most fortunate, at least apparently, to have been the first. It's a sure thing, he told Sam, adding obsequiously that all it needed was the producer's magic touch. Well, Sam fell for it, for if George Oppenheimer possessed any genius at all, it was his power of persuasion, a talent so prodigious that by the end of the day, Sam had contacted the book's publisher, had purchased the motion picture rights before even reading the book himself. $15,000 he had paid, based exclusively on George Oppenheimer's breathless endorsement of what he had read. Well, naturally, considering that investment, Sam decided he must now read the book. He borrowed George's copy, and he began. It was a ponderous commitment. Nobody then could have imagined how ponderous, for Sam had for many years carefully concealed one particular shortcoming, one so potentially humiliating that he dared not confide it to anybody outside his closest family. Sam could not read. At least not the way most folks read. Oh, he could sound out the simpler words, grope his way through an ordinary sentence if he had to. Employees had assumed that he insisted on being told things merely because he was too busy to read them, when in fact, he would never have bought the rights to that book of George's had he only read it first. Well, painstakingly he plowed through it. Now here he was in possession of yet another ridiculous Oppenheimer recommendation, $15,000 poorer. So what was he to do? He was to do what he did. He fired George. And he cast George's unusable story aside. Eventually, after a lot of fast talking, he did manage to unload it on another studio. The scenery is often so much clearer in a rear-view mirror, as it is for you and me, right now, looking back on the movie property which not even persuasive George Oppenheimer could get filmed. In those days, not even Walt Disney wanted the book that it took Sam Goldwyn more than a week to read, the only book that he would ever read in his life, a lavishly illustrated little volume with large print entitled The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And now you know the rest of the story.